Most people spend their entire lives believing that the loudest voice is the strongest one. They believe that the person who talks the most, argues the hardest, and always has an answer is the person who holds the most power. But that belief is one of the biggest illusions in human behavior. In reality, some of the most influential people in history, business, politics, and everyday life have shared one surprising habit. They knew exactly when to stay silent. That single skill often gave them an advantage that everyone else completely missed. The strange part is that most people never even notice it happening. Look closely at any serious negotiation, any high-stakes meeting, or any difficult conversation. The person who cannot stop talking usually gives away their thoughts, emotions, and weaknesses without realizing it. Meanwhile, the quiet person listens. They observe, they wait, and when they finally speak, every word carries weight. It almost feels as though the entire room stops to listen. That is not luck. It is psychology. Most people think silence is uncomfortable. They rush to fill every pause because they are afraid that being quiet makes them look weak, shy, or uncertain. But research on communication and human behavior suggests something very different. Strategic silence can increase perceived confidence, improve listening, and reduce emotional reactions. In other words, the person who is comfortable with silence often appears more composed, more trustworthy, and more powerful than the person who constantly feels the need to speak. That is why silence has been called one of the most underrated forms of influence. It can reveal truths that words hide. It can expose dishonesty without asking a single question. It can make people reveal more than they ever intended. And perhaps most surprisingly, silence can protect you from mistakes that cannot be taken back once words leave your mouth. Throughout this video, you will discover why silent people often seem to stay one step ahead of everyone else. You will learn the hidden psychology behind quiet confidence, why the human brain reacts differently to silence than to endless conversation, how silence can give you an advantage in arguments, relationships, and the workplace, and why some of the world's most respected leaders deliberately chose their words carefully instead of speaking constantly. You will also learn the difference between powerful silence and fearful silence because they are not the same thing. As we move forward, you may begin to notice behaviors that have been happening around you for years without ever recognizing them. Some of these psychological principles are so subtle that once you understand them, you will never look at conversations the same way again. And the final lesson might completely change the way you communicate with people for the rest of your life, because the greatest strength is often hidden in the moments when nothing is being said at all. So stay with us until the very end, because each lesson builds on the one before it, and the last insight brings everything together in a way that most people never realize. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy exploring psychology, human behavior, and the hidden principles that shape success and influence, then subscribe now and join our growing community. Let us begin uncovering why the silent ones so often end up winning. Most of us are taught from a very young age that confidence has a sound. It is loud, it is fast, it speaks first, it answers every question without hesitation, it fills every silence before anyone else has the chance. As children, we quickly learn that the students who raise their hands the fastest are often praised. The classroom becomes one of the first places where speaking is connected with intelligence. The child who responds immediately is seen as prepared. The child who sits quietly thinking before answering is often overlooked. Without anyone saying it directly, a simple belief begins to grow inside our minds. If you want people to notice you, you have to keep talking. That lesson follows us long after school ends. As adults, the environment changes, but the message stays almost the same. Social media rewards people who always have something to say. Every event demands an opinion. Every trend expects a reaction. Every disagreement becomes another opportunity for someone to prove they are right. People post their thoughts within seconds because silence feels like disappearing. The faster you respond, the more visible you become. The louder your opinion, the more attention it receives. After seeing this happen thousands of times, many people begin to believe that confidence and constant expression are the same thing, but they are not. There is a huge difference between being heard and being respected. Anyone can make noise. Very few people can make people stop and listen. That difference changes everything. Think about the people who dominate every conversation. They answer questions before anyone else finishes asking them. They interrupt. They tell long stories that always end with themselves as the main character. They explain every opinion in detail because they want everyone to understand exactly how they think. At first, this behavior can seem impressive. They appear confident. They appear knowledgeable. They appear important. But after spending enough time around them, something interesting begins to happen. Their words lose their impact. When someone talks constantly, nothing they say feels special anymore. It becomes predictable. The brain starts treating their voice as background noise because it is always there. Psychologists have long understood that the human brain pays more attention to contrast than to repetition. When something happens constantly, our minds slowly stop noticing it. This is why you stop hearing the ticking of a clock after sitting in the same room for a while. It is why you stop noticing the feeling of your clothes on your skin after wearing them for a few minutes. The same principle applies to communication. If someone is always talking, their words slowly become ordinary. But when someone speaks only after listening carefully, every sentence feels different. People naturally become curious. They assume those words were chosen carefully. This does not mean quiet people are automatically wise. It means careful communication creates a different impression. There is another reason this happens. Real confidence does not need constant proof. Think about someone who truly knows what they are doing. A skilled doctor does not need to remind every patient that they went to medical school. A talented musician does not stop after every song to explain how talented they are. A master craftsman does not spend more time describing the quality of the work than actually creating it. Their ability speaks for them. Confidence works in much the same way. When you know your value, you do not feel the same pressure to convince everyone else of it. Insecurity often talks because it wants reassurance. Confidence listens because it does not need permission to exist. That idea can feel surprising because it goes against what we see every day. Many people mistake volume for strength. They assume the loudest person is automatically the leader. But leadership has never been about speaking the most. It has always been about creating trust. Think about a meeting at work. Everyone begins offering ideas at once. One person interrupts another. Someone quickly rejects an idea before hearing the full explanation. Another person keeps talking simply because they do not want the room to become quiet. Then there is one individual who says almost nothing. Instead of rushing to speak, they listen. They pay attention to every suggestion. They notice who seems confident and who sounds uncertain. They notice which ideas receive support and which ones create hesitation. After several minutes, they finally speak. Their comment is short, clear, focused, and suddenly the room becomes silent, not because they spoke louder, because they spoke after understanding the entire conversation. Their words solve the confusion everyone else helped create. That kind of influence does not come from talking more. It comes from thinking more. There is an old saying that wisdom has two ears and one mouth for a reason. Whether or not the saying is literally true does not matter. Its lesson remains powerful. Listen twice as much as you speak. The problem is that listening feels passive. Talking feels active. People often confuse activity with progress, but those are not the same thing. Someone can spend an hour arguing without solving anything. Another person can spend 10 minutes listening and completely understand the problem. That difference becomes even more important during disagreements. Many people enter conversations with one goal: to win. So while the other person is speaking, they are not actually listening. They are preparing their next sentence. They are waiting for their turn. They hear words, but they miss meaning. A quiet person often approaches conversations differently. Instead of searching for the next response, they search for understanding. That small difference changes everything because understanding gives you information. Information gives you choices, and choices create better decisions. This is where silence begins to reveal its real power. It is not simply the absence of words. It is the presence of attention. Attention is becoming increasingly rare. Most conversations today compete against phones, notifications, stress, deadlines, and endless distractions. Very few people give someone their complete attention anymore. When they finally meet someone who genuinely listens without interrupting, it stands out immediately. People remember how you make them feel. And feeling heard is one of the rarest experiences in modern life. Ironically, the person speaking the least often leaves the strongest impression because they made someone else feel important. Now, something even more fascinating begins to happen. Silence changes not only how you see other people, it changes how other people see you. Human beings are naturally uncomfortable with uncertainty. Our brains constantly search for patterns. We want to predict what someone will say next. We want to know what they think. We want to understand their intentions. Predictability makes us feel safe. When someone explains every thought, every emotion, and every opinion, there is very little left to discover. You know exactly where they stand, exactly how they feel, exactly how they will react. They become easy to read, but when someone remains calm and speaks only when necessary, something unusual happens inside the minds of everyone around them. Curiosity begins to grow. People start asking silent questions. What are they thinking? Why did they not respond? Did they notice something everyone else missed? Do they know something I do not? Why are they so calm? Those questions create psychological tension. The human brain dislikes unanswered questions. It wants closure. That is why mystery naturally attracts attention. Think about your favorite mystery novel. If every answer appeared on the first page, you would probably stop reading. The unanswered questions keep you turning the pages. The same principle quietly operates during conversations. A person who reveals everything immediately gives the brain nothing to explore. A person who speaks selectively leaves room for curiosity. Curiosity keeps attention alive. This does not mean pretending to be mysterious. People can usually sense artificial behavior. Forced silence feels awkward. Strategic silence feels natural. The difference lies in intention. One comes from trying to impress people. The other comes from being comfortable without constant approval. Comfort with silence is surprisingly uncommon. Research has found that even a few seconds of silence during a conversation can make many people uncomfortable. That discomfort explains why so many people rush to fill every pause. Someone coughs. Someone laughs nervously. Someone changes the subject. Someone starts talking simply because the room became quiet. But the person who remains relaxed gains an invisible advantage. While everyone else is trying to escape the silence, they remain completely comfortable inside it. That calmness communicates something powerful without saying a single word. It suggests emotional stability. It suggests patience. It suggests confidence. Not because silence automatically creates those qualities, but because most people associate calm behavior with self-control. This becomes especially noticeable during negotiations. The first person who feels uncomfortable often begins talking again. Sometimes they reveal more information than they intended. Sometimes they lower their demands. Sometimes they explain weaknesses they never needed to mention. All because they wanted to escape a few uncomfortable seconds of silence. Experienced negotiators understand this principle well. They know silence can encourage the other person to keep speaking, and the more someone speaks, the more information they reveal. That information often becomes the most valuable part of the entire conversation. Silence in this way is not empty, it is working quickly but patently, collecting details that constant talking would have drowned out. And while mystery captures attention, it is not the greatest gift that silence offers. Its greatest gift is something even more valuable: observation. Observation is one of the most underestimated skills in human behavior. People admire quick thinkers, they admire clever speakers, they admire those who always seem ready with the perfect response. But very few people stop to admire the person who notices the small details everyone else completely misses. Those details rarely make headlines, they rarely receive applause, yet they often determine who makes the best decision. The interesting thing about observation is that it requires something many people struggle to give: time. You cannot truly observe someone while you are busy thinking about what you are going to say next. You cannot notice hidden emotions while your attention is focused on proving your own point. You cannot read the room if your only goal is to become the center of it. Silence creates space. And inside that space, the mind begins collecting information that loud conversations often bury. Think about walking into a room where several people are talking. One person immediately starts telling a story. Another keeps interrupting. Someone laughs louder than everyone else. At first glance, it looks like the loudest people control the conversation. But the quiet person notices something different. They notice that one person laughs even when nothing is funny. They notice someone keeps looking at the clock. They notice two coworkers exchange quick glances every time a certain subject comes up. They notice a smile that lasts only a second before disappearing. They notice a voice that sounds confident but carries a hint of nervousness. Most people hear words. Observers notice behavior. That difference is enormous. Human beings communicate far more through behavior than through language. A person can say they are happy while their face tells a completely different story. Someone can claim they are confident while their body reveals tension. Another person may insist everything is fine, yet their breathing becomes faster. Their shoulders tighten and they avoid eye contact. Words are only one part of communication. Behavior tells the rest of the story. This is why truly good listeners often understand people better than those who speak the most. They are not distracted by preparing speeches. Their attention is free to notice the details, and those details often reveal the truth. There is an old expression that actions speak louder than words. People repeat it so often that it almost sounds ordinary, but there is a reason it has survived for generations. Words can be carefully chosen. Knacks are much harder to control. Someone may spend hours preparing the perfect explanation, but they cannot always hide hesitation. They cannot always control the slight pause before answering. They cannot always hide frustration that flashes across their face for a fraction of a second. Those tiny moments often tell a bigger story than an entire conversation. Silent people tend to notice these moments because they are paying attention instead of competing for attention. This becomes incredibly valuable in everyday life. Suppose you are meeting a friend for coffee. They tell you everything is going well. They smile, they even laugh. Most people would accept those words and move on, but someone who observes carefully notices something else. The smile disappears almost immediately. Their eyes look tired. Their voice sounds unusually quiet. They avoid talking about work. They change the subject whenever family is mentioned. Without asking directly, you begin to sense that something is wrong. Later, they finally admit they have been struggling for weeks. They are surprised you noticed. You are not psychic, you simply paid attention. Observation creates understanding. And understanding strengthens relationships. People often believe strong relationships are built by saying the right things. Sometimes they are built by noticing the things that were never said. The same principle applies in the workplace. Think about a team meeting. Everyone is discussing a new project. One employee confidently explains why everything is going according to plan. Another agrees immediately. Several others nod their heads. The discussion moves on. But one quiet employee notices something unusual. The project manager answered every question except one. Whenever the budget came up, there was hesitation. Whenever deadlines were mentioned, the tone changed slightly. Most people ignored those signals because they were focused on the words. The observer noticed the pattern. A week later, the company announces delays caused by budget problems. Everyone acts surprised. The quiet employee is not. They saw the warning signs long before anyone else. Observation often allows people to prepare before problems become obvious. That is one reason calm people frequently appear wise. It is not because they possess magical instincts. It is because they collected information others ignored. Information is one of the most valuable resources in life. The person who understands a situation clearly almost always has an advantage over the person acting on assumptions. And silence is one of the easiest ways to gather that information. Talking gives information away. Listening collects it. Think about how detectives solve difficult cases. Movies often show dramatic moments where someone suddenly discovers the answer. Real investigations usually look very different. They involve hours of watching, listening, comparing stories, noticing contradictions, finding small details that everyone else overlooked. One tiny inconsistency can completely change the direction of an investigation. Life works much the same way. Small details often reveal big truths. A person says they support your idea, but they never actually help. A coworker promises to finish their part of a project, yet every deadline arrives with another excuse. A business partner constantly talks about honesty, but avoids answering simple questions. Eventually, patterns become impossible to ignore. Pots matter far more than promises. Silent people often recognize patterns because they spend less time talking and more time watching. That habit protects them from being misled by impressive words alone. It also helps them understand personalities more accurately. Some people speak with confidence because they genuinely know what they are doing. Others speak with confidence because they hope nobody notices they are guessing. At first, both can sound convincing. Only observation reveals the difference. Time exposes consistency. Consistency reveals character. Character predicts future behavior. This is why first impressions can be misleading. Someone who dominates the room during the first meeting may leave a strong impression, but after weeks or months, the person who quietly delivers results often earns deeper respect. People eventually trust consistency more than performance. Another hidden benefit of observation is that it improves judgment. Many poor decisions happen because people react before collecting enough information. They hear one rumor and immediately believe it. They read one comment and instantly become angry. They hear half of a conversation and assume they know the entire story. The mind naturally wants quick answers. It dislikes uncertainty, so it fills missing information with assumptions. Observation slows that process down. Instead of asking, "How can I respond?" observers ask, "What am I missing?" That single question changes everything. It encourages patience. It encourages curiosity. Most importantly, it encourages accuracy. History is filled with costly mistakes caused by acting too quickly. Businesses have failed because leaders ignored warning signs. Friendships have ended because people misunderstood intentions. Families have experienced years of conflict because someone reacted emotionally before understanding the full situation. Many of those outcomes could have been avoided with one simple habit: pause, observe, then decide. That pause may last only a few seconds, yet those few seconds often separate wisdom from regret. The remarkable thing is that observation does not require extraordinary intelligence. It requires discipline. Anyone can learn it. The challenge is resisting the urge to speak immediately. Modern life trains us to react quickly. Notifications demand instant replies. Mosques expect immediate responses. News spreads within seconds. Opinions form before facts are fully understood. Speed has become a symbol of competence, but speed without understanding often creates mistakes. The quiet observer chooses a different path. They slow down just enough to see clearly, and seeing clearly gives them another powerful advantage. It helps them control their emotions before their emotions begin controlling them. Because the truth is, most arguments are not lost because someone lacked a good point. They are lost because someone lost control of themselves. The world will always reward people who know how to get attention, but attention and influence are not the same thing. The loudest voice is rarely the strongest. In fact, the people who leave the greatest impact are often the ones who never feel the need to prove themselves. They understand that real power does not rush. It does not compete for every conversation. It does not chase attention. And it certainly does not depend on constant validation from others. Silence is not about saying less just for the sake of being quiet. It is about knowing when your words will matter the most. It is about listening when others are busy talking. It is about observing what everyone else overlooks. It is about staying calm when emotions begin taking control. And it is about choosing thoughtful responses instead of impulsive reactions. That is why the silent ones do not always win because they speak less. They win because they think more, they notice more, they understand more, they learn more, they observe more carefully, they react less emotionally. They make better decisions because they collect information before reaching conclusions. And when they finally decide to speak, people listen. Not because they are the loudest person in the room, but because their words have earned value. The next time you find yourself feeling the urge to interrupt, defend yourself, or fill every moment of silence, pause for just a second. Ask yourself whether speaking will truly improve the conversation, or whether listening might give you a greater advantage. You may discover that the strongest move is not always the one that makes the most noise. Remember this: anyone can fill a room with noise. Very few people can command it with silence. If you enjoyed this video and found these insights valuable, please take a moment to like the video. It helps us create more content that explores psychology, human behavior, and the hidden principles behind success and influence. And if you want to keep learning ideas that can change the way you think, communicate, and understand the people around you, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.